Hello, morning, buenos días, bonjour. Welcome. We are going to initiate our symposium. If you can sit, we are going to start. Okay. Welcome again. I am Raúl Compés, and the director of the CIHEAM Zaragoza. CIHEAM Zaragoza is the Spanish headquarters of the International Center for Advanced Mediterranean Agronomic Studies. Mr. Secretary General of CIHEAM, welcome. Mr. Director for North Africa of the Directorate General for the Middle East, North Africa, and the Gulf of the European Commission. Welcome, Francisco. And Mr. Deputy Secretary General for Higher Education and Research of the Union for the Mediterranean. Thank you for coming here, Joan. Representatives of organizations, experts, and professionals engaged in international development cooperation, both here with us in this auditorium and those following online. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to our institute and to thank you for accepting our invitation to take part in this symposium. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a profound paradigm shift in international relations. This transformation stems from a new balance of power among the world's major economic, military, and cultural actors. The principles of multilateralism and rule-based cooperation between nations are weakening. Confidence in liberal democracy and the social market economy, cornerstones of Western and Western-inspired societies, is being eroded. The emergence of new trade and military conflicts, as well as the aggravation of unresolved ones, is accelerating this trend. It is reflected in the resurgence of geopolitics, once a strictly military discipline, now encompassing broader dimensions of power between states, its origins, its uses, and its consequences. These tectonic shifts in global relations are inevitably reshaping development cooperation. Despite continuous academic debates on its effectiveness and efficiency since early 21st century, and even though official development assistance reached record levels in 2023, aid from the main donors countries fell by 7.1% in real terms in 2024. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, several major donors reduced their commitments, and in 2025, the decline may deepen further. In this context, the increase in Spanish cooperations stands out even more, at 12% in 2024 of increase. This is called the Spanish cooperation exception. This turning point fits within the broader geopolitical reconfiguration, where strategic alliances and national interests increasingly shape cooperation priorities. Such changes may have devastating effects on many developing countries, particularly in the agri-food sector. Numerous nations lack both the productive capacity and the economic resources to ensure food security for their populations. Moreover, they face structural weaknesses that are difficult to overcome, especially in the Mediterranean region, where vulnerability to climate change and global warming is compounded by limited human, scientific, technological, institutional, and financial capacities. Ladies and gentlemen, CIHEAM, an organization founded in 1962 to promote agri-food cooperation among its member states, we are deeply concerned by these trends. We are determined to contribute to the search for new models that will allow us to address the challenges faced by the most vulnerable countries more effectively, in particular those around the Mediterranean basin. We are confident that the discussions at this symposium will shed light on the new orientations and perspectives shaping agri-food development cooperation at the global level and the new roles of the main actors in this new scenario. With fewer financial resources available, we must adapt our programs to become more efficient, more integrated, and more impactful. In our view, the new phase of cooperation must give greater preeminence to innovation, digitalization, to the systemic and cross-sectoral approaches rather than isolated projects, to human capital development, to evidence-based impact evaluation, and to stronger coordination among actors through networks, alliances, and scientific diplomacy for development. In the agri-food domain, this means prioritizing efforts to reduce food insecurity, tackle climate and environmental crises, promote gender equality in access to land, resources, and opportunities, address in an integrated manner the nexus between water, food, energy, and the environment, and foster entrepreneurship and job creation in the most vulnerable territories. At CIHEAM Zaragoza, we strongly believe in the transformative power of knowledge and entrepreneurship, knowing in order to act, to transform, in the service of noble causes. Let us therefore commit to a model of agri-food development cooperation centered on education, training, and capacity building, with a constant focus on the major challenges confronting our member countries, 13 member countries. Ladies and gentlemen, we have invited to this symposium all key stakeholders in agri-food cooperation, regional, national, and international development agencies, major international organizations, governments from both donor and beneficiary countries, universities and research centers, NGOs, and civil society organizations. Every perspective matters. Together, we will debate the future of international agri-food cooperation, particularly in the Mediterranean, and explore ways to strengthen our partnership, forge new ones, and expand our shared capital of trust and collaboration. With this symposium, we also join in celebrating the Mediterranean Day, established by the Union for the Mediterranean, and first celebrated in 2021. We are especially honored to welcome today Mr. Joan Borrell, Deputy Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean. I also wish to express our sincere gratitude to the Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation, AECID, for its support to this symposium and for the presence of its representatives among us today and tomorrow. We have recently initiated a promising collaboration with AECID to reinforce its Masar Alan program. We shared AECID's vision of addressing cooperation in its three dimensions: economic, social, and environmental, and we are prepared to contribute value on critical issues such as water, employment, and gender, where we will be carrying out important activities in the coming years. To conclude, I would like to recall the words of Professor Jeffrey Sachs, one of the leading voices in development economics. He said, "Rich countries must mobilize global science and technology to address the specific problems that help keep poor countries poor." I hope you will enjoy both the content of this symposium and your stay with us here in Zaragoza over the next 2 days. I am confident that we will emerge better prepared to confront the challenges of agri-food development cooperation in this new area. Thank you very much.
Good morning to everybody. I think that good meetings start with good occasions, and I want to thank Raúl for the splendid welcome reception of last night. That has been a really good opening for the meeting. So, Mr. Francisco Gaztelu, Mr. Joan Borrell, dear Raúl, Raúl already mentioned briefly about the organization, about CIHEAM, and we are a Mediterranean intergovernmental organization which is devoted to the sustainable development of the agri-food system, the rural and coastal management, food safety and security across the region. We operate as a vital link between North and South, focusing on multilateral cooperation, knowledge sharing and policy dialogue, both among its 13 member countries, but also with many other countries from Africa, Asia, and beyond. We operate through 4 specialized Mediterranean agronomic institutes established in Bari, Chania, Montpellier, and Zaragoza in Spain. And over the decades, we expanded the attention also beyond the southern and eastern shores of the Mediterranean, looking, for example, at Sub-Saharan countries and cementing its role as a key player in the regional dialogue. We, as Raúl was mentioning, we have been founded in 1962 at the joint initiative of the OECD and the Council of Europe. And the founding was driven by a visionary individual who was, among the others, the Spanish Ramón Estervelas, who sought to promote economic development and lasting peace in the Mediterranean by focusing on technical and agricultural cooperation. Initially, the international cooperation of CIHEAM was funding on providing supplementary post-university education to office and public servants of the South and East Mediterranean. But it's very interesting to follow the evolution of the approach to cooperation of the organization across time and across the changing geopolitical context in order to rethink and reshape the international cooperation in the field of the agri-food system. Just to anticipate slightly some of the topic of the symposium and the roundtables. With time, the building of CIHEAM has grown and expanded, adding to education also a few more pillars like research, cooperation, innovation, and technological transfer, aiming to gather an integrated and complex ecosystem of multiple and diverse stakeholders and professionalities in the Mediterranean and beyond. The main activities of CIHEAM, according to the strategic plan 2030, goes with aspects like education and training, offering Master of Science, doctorate programs, and highly specialized courses in several fields of green and blue economy, sustainable food system, and others, promoting the mobility of young researchers and future leaders. Then research and cooperation. We participate in coordinated networked research projects aimed to finding practical problem-solving solutions tailored to the Mediterranean environment. Current thematic priorities include enhancing agroecological practice and adapting to climate change. And I will come back at the end with a mention to this issue. Policy dialogue and scientific diplomacy. CIHEAM facilitates, for example, the meetings of Ministry of Agriculture and high-level forums, providing a unique space for scientific findings where they inform political decision-making, helping to elaborate a cohesive and structural vision for the Mediterranean development. And the capacity building, it provides the technical assistance and promotes inclusive development by focusing on youth and women empowerment in rural and coastal areas and in fragile territories. Now, the symposium, we learned from the program of the symposium that there are 3 paramount objectives. Among those, the most relevant, in my opinion, is the identify the new orientation and novel thorough rethinking of the agri-food development cooperation, responding to the changing needs of beneficiary countries, especially in the light of the serious international geopolitical crisis. International development cooperation is fundamentally rooted in a principle of shared global responsibility, recognizing that interconnections among nations means that stability, prosperity, and human rights are indivisible. For wealthier nations, this cooperation is driven by a moral imperative to alleviate poverty, address humanitarian crises, and promote sustainable development in poorer countries. But beyond the moral aspect, however, it reflects enlightened self-interest, which is addressing global challenges like climate change, pandemics, or regional conflicts, which require collective action, and stable, prosperous partners contribute to a more secure global economy. These actions are intended to foster economic growth, improve health and education outcomes, strengthen democratic institutions in recipient countries, support local communities and markets, connect research and technology with private business, empower more vulnerable components of our societies, moving beyond mere charity towards genuine partnership focused on building resilience and self-sufficiency. Now, the last part, I will be very brief, but I want to steal 1 minute. Today, during these days, we are having the COP30 in Belém in Brazil, okay? So the declaration, there was a declaration coming a couple of days ago, extremely interesting and important, who is the Belém Declaration on Hunger, Poverty, and Human-Centered Climate Action. And this is very important because this declaration establishes the unequal and exacerbating impacts of climate change on hunger, poverty, and vulnerability as the central principle of future climate action. It affirms that environmental degradation and climate change are intensifying food insecurity, health risks, and inequalities, disproportionately affecting the poor. The declaration commits subscribing countries to a human-centered climate response to advance social justice and the progressive realization of human rights, including the right to adequate food and social security. This approach emphasizes social dialogue, participation, and empowerment of those most affected. The declaration outlines 3 main areas, I will be very short on that, of commitment, all centered on building human resilience. So the first is make social protection a foundation of resilience. Means that almost half of the world lacks access to social protection, with the weakest system existing where climate exposure, poverty, and hunger are highest. To combat, subscribing countries commit to strengthening social protection as a highly efficient strategy to reduce vulnerability and protect human dignity. The second axis is support small-scale food producers as agents of resilience. And this is really when we come into place, because this is really what CIHEAM is about. Smallholder farmers, fisherfolk, pastoralists, indigenous people, and local communities are recognized as high vulnerable to climate change, yet they are crucial stewards of ecosystem and central to sustainable food system. There are different models of that. We were discussing briefly yesterday during the cocktail about that with some friends. So the commitment will invest scale-up solutions, insurance, guarantees, de-risking mechanism, expanded the access to climate resilience infrastructure and services, support the adoption of sustainable practice. And the last issue is enable just transitions in sensitive ecosystems. To combat the intense pressure on forests and ecologically critical regions from deforestation, for example, the declaration emphasizes the lasting solution must actively promote vibrant and sustainable livelihoods for local population, with a number of actions like scaling up inclusive and sustainable solutions, expanding sustainable livelihood alternatives, and protecting the tenure rights of the indigenous and local communities. At last, the declaration emphasizes an aspect which is extremely relevant also for our discussion, which is the need for significant and equitable finance, calling on parties to deliver on the new collected quantified goals on climate finance, prioritizing safeguarding food security and ending hunger. Furthermore, it encourages the countries to integrate the human-centered approach explicitly into their national climate commitments, setting quantifiable goals for tracking progress, including a stock taking of collective progress against this target set for 2030. So I'm very glad that CIHEAM Zaragoza has started this extremely significant discussion within our community and involving such a diverse and competent audience with the clear help of the Spanish Cooperation Agency. I wish you all a very productive and useful discussion during the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning to all. I think I will strike a different tonality, maybe from the one it has been very interesting and as well excelling in terms of quality. I will just maybe talk a bit more informally, just for a few minutes. I'm an agricultural engineer, so I'm very, very happy to be here, but I'm a rejected agricultural engineer. Every time I try to apply for a job in the European Commission where I work now or somewhere else in terms of agriculture, I never got a job there, so I had to move to development and rural development. And then finally I finished doing Middle East politics, which is a very different thing. And therefore I was particularly happy to be invited to be here today. I've not been in Zaragoza for 20-some years, and I have not been in an agricultural institute for some 25 years as well. So for me, it's really a very strong privilege to be here. And I came here really to learn, although it is maybe an advantageous and position for me to learn and not to teach, because I was really interested when I got this invitation to see what this unique organization CIHEAM is doing, what the institute, this specific institute doing really very special things is doing, and try to see how I can integrate the experience of this institute into what we are doing at the European Commission. That is the reality. I'm really talking out of my heart, I also saw that Joan was joining us from the UFM, and we are working with the UFM very closely, in implementing the Mediterranean policies. And I thought also was a great opportunity for being here. And I think this is the beginning, I think, of a very promising cooperation, if I may say, and I risk to say, for the forthcoming future. Maybe as well to say, of course, the food, what we call the food, energy, water nexus, is a very important priority for us. And I think we will have the occasion now in a few minutes to discuss about this. It's going to be a central priority, what we call the Mediterranean Pact, the Pact for the Mediterranean. Maybe you have heard about this new framework that the Commission is launching. It's going to be endorsed, hopefully, at the margins of the UFN Mediterranean Forum in a few weeks or in a few days, basically, on the 20th of November in Barcelona, under the auspices as well of the UFM. But I think, as I said, what this nexus between water, food, and energy is key in the pact, but it's also key, of course, for the main objectives we try to pursue in the Mediterranean, which are stability, prosperity, and integration. Those are the elements we're looking at. In terms of stability, I don't see anything more important than food security, to be honest. I mean, for the social stability and the social cohesion of this country, which is key for us to ensure that there is the basic security, as I said, and as well cohesion in the societies of these countries, and as per extension as well in the Euro-Mediterranean area, and as well because it is key as well for the prosperity of these countries. We understand as well that without having a clear system of securing food availability, quality of food in these countries, then we cannot as well ensure the basic prosperity on the basis on which we can actually develop all the economic dimensions. I also would like to mention food diplomacy, which is something maybe new. It's something maybe I have invented not myself, maybe you have already invented in the past, but with the director and the Secretary General were presenting a little bit to me the premises here, and were showing me the olive tree and a number of symbols which are actually at the center, I think, of what CIHEAM is trying to do. I think this element of food diplomacy is also very, very important. I don't see how we can think about integrating the Mediterranean without putting food security and everything which is linked to food at the center of our cooperation. Not only because of food security, but also because I think food is a matter of common culture, it's a matter of trade, it's a matter that can actually unite in a world which is more and more increasing and experiencing increasing divisions. And then, as As a final element of this little introduction, what I really find very connecting between what CIHEAM is doing and the European Commission intends to do as well is this issue of focusing on capacity, on knowledge, on excellence, on technological development. Our intention in the Mediterranean after 30 years of Barcelona process, which successes and failures, is really now to aim to increase the level of ambition. And we want to really go for this goal for which I joined the European Commission 25 years ago, which is the integration in the Mediterranean space, to have a common Mediterranean space. And this common Mediterranean space, we believe that it is important to start as we started in the reunification, the unification of the European Union. When we started in the European Union, we didn't think about having a common monetary union. We didn't think about common currency. We didn't think about a common political union. We just thought, as you know, to have a common space of research, common space, for managing our coal and steel resources. That was the origin and the beginnings of the EU. We believe that we can, together with our partner countries in the south, replicate this model and I think to start successfully knowledge, capacity building, and technological development, bringing together minds, not only minds and souls, of our researchers, of people working in a technological area, in an area where knowledge is important, can be an excellent beginning of this integration process we'd like to accelerate. So I leave it there because I think we'll have ample occasion, I think, now to discuss more substance issues. And I would like to say that I'm very, very happy to be here and to have the opportunity to really learn more about what the Institute is doing and see and explore possibilities of working together in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me introduce myself. I'm Joan Borrell. I work at the Union for the Mediterranean in Barcelona. Union for the Mediterranean is the permanent secretariat of the Barcelona process, the Euromed cooperation. So we are celebrating as a secretariat 15 years in Barcelona, as a process 30 years this year, but CIHEAM is celebrating or will be celebrating 65 years in the next 2 years. So credit where credit is due. Gaztelu, Francisco, mentioned that we all want to raise the level of ambition in our Euromed cooperation. But at the same time, and if I follow your idea, at the same time, we need to go back to the basics of cooperation, as CIHEAM did. I mean, international cooperation that really delivers concrete results, concrete deliverables for society, for the people. And why is that? Why is this so much needed now? Because, and I'm also in a panel. I mean, I'll be here all day. I'll be here for lunch. I'll be here for dinner. I'll be participating in a session on development cooperation from the southern perspective. So, in as much as at the UFM, I lead the division on higher education and research, I think we can talk on how research, innovation, and higher education can match with what CIHEAM is doing. But let me use this introduction to focus on a bigger picture. We are facing, in the region, but in the world, we are facing real challenges. We're going through the demographic transition. We've never been there, with a huge demographical imbalance between the North and the South. We are facing a digital transition, artificial intelligence, robotization, that may end work as we know it. We are facing a climate transition that for many regions in the Mediterranean is going to put many regions under severe stress. And on top of it, we are facing a geopolitical transition in which the multilateralism system, the cooperative system that was set after Second World War, of which CIAM was one of the deliverables. Let's cooperate among countries after decolonization. This is being put into question. More and more individuals, more and more social groups, and more countries are opting out. They're opting for sálvese quien pueda, sauve qui peut, every man for himself. They're opting for a non-cooperative approach. So we need to both protect such a legacy, the legacy that the challenges that we are facing ahead can only be addressed in a cooperative way. But at the same time, we need to assess critically the limitations and the failures of our multilateral system. Too many meetings, too many declarations, too many good words that are not followed by resources, and that so many times are not addressing the real issues. So in that sense, I really think that we need to go back to basics, and basics historically, chronologically, but also when it comes to food and when it comes to agriculture, those are the basics. We need to work more on a cooperation that can really deliver. Won't be easy, but as I hope we can address in our panel, we have the tools, we have the will. I think we all share the same assessment, we all share the same anguish, and we should all work together to make it happen. So thank you.
Muchas gracias. I invite you to the next panel to join us to go up to the stage. Thank you.